Carriage Education Program Parenting class. We're going to start on page 71. We're going to pick up where we left off last week on page 71. And it's entitled Lesson 9, Teach Children Responsibility. That's on page 71. Teach Children Responsibility. We're going to start with the first paragraph. It says, as parents, we have a great responsibility to prepare today's children for tomorrow's world. By molding positive character, children will follow our examples and make choices that will benefit themselves and society. And underline that. They will follow our examples and make choices that will benefit themselves and society. It is a fact that who children become and what they deem important depend largely on what they're taught and what they put into practice. So whatever we as parents deem as important, this is what our children are going to deem as important as well. Think of, for instance, basketball players. Or people in general who like basketball. They find it important. So their children normally find basketball something very important, something that they can exercise. All they want to talk about sometimes is basketball. Why is that? Because that's what their parent deemed important. So they themselves find basketball as important. So whatever you want your child to deem as important, you should talk about it. You should say why it's important to you. Explain to your children, this is what is important to me, and this is why it's important to me. It's a parent's responsibility to instill within their children the need to practice positive character in all aspects of their life. So this is our responsibility to teach our children that positive character is something that is in every aspect in our life. Let's flip over to page 17. We're going to go back to page 17 real quick. And we're going to remind ourselves what character is. Page 17. It says character more than meets the eye. Character is a combination of morals and beliefs that governs how we treat others, our environment, and ourselves. It is the basis by which our every thought, action, and decision is derived, and it is a means by which we distinguish between right and wrong. So our character is what we believe in and feel strongly about. If you turn to page 18, you'll see these are the positive character traits. So this is what we are teaching our children, is that these positive character traits are what we want in their everyday life. And how do they implement these positive character traits? How do they develop them? Honesty. Sounds like, how can I be honest? Simply telling the truth. So if you're telling the truth, then you're developing the character trait of being honest. So let's go ahead and turn back to page 71. That was just a side note, so you can go back and reiterate with your class what character is and the positive character traits. So all these positive character traits, they're going to affect us in every aspect of our lives. If you look over to the corner, it says, it takes self-control to be responsible. Self-control is the foundation of all moral behavior, which means you control your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. You have to take control of yourself in order to be responsible. Because if you don't control what you're thinking and you're feeling, do you think you'll be able to accomplish a task? No, because your emotions will be controlling you. So each positive character trait works together. And when you take your time to work on these positive character traits, the teacher last week said take one at a time. And I encourage you to do that. Because if you look at all those positive character traits, you can look at yourself and say, I'm a complete failure. I'm not responsible. I'm not honest most of the time. So take one and work on that. And then slowly you'll see that, hey, I am honest. I was on time this one time. It might have been one time, but you were on time. And that over time, you will see that it will become a habit. So instead of being late, you're going to be on time. Why? Because you took the time. You were patient with yourself. Going on, it says, parents who are accountable and responsible for their choices will be able to raise children who choose to be accountable and responsible as well. So first, as parents, we must be accountable for our actions. And I want to go back all the way to the responsibility book. And for those who have been with us from the very beginning, you probably know where I'm going. In the responsibility book on page 14, it says A is for accountability. And I want you to reference this on page 71. A is for accountability. Another aspect of a responsible character is a willingness to answer for your choices and behavior. This is called accountability. People who are accountable accept the consequences of their actions and learn from the choices that they've made. People who are not accountable for their actions blame others for the choices they have made and make excuses for their actions. So before we make a choice, think, am I okay to explain why I did this to someone else? And if you are not comfortable, then you probably should not be making that choice, because you are held accountable for every action that you make. In the responsibility book on page 42, the last paragraph, chapter 3 is entitled, I have a responsibility to myself. In the last paragraph it says, you have an obligation to yourself to constantly seek ways to develop and improve your character. To do this, you must be accountable for your actions, accept the advice of those in authority, and use self-control to make proper decisions. You must also be willing to follow the rules and guidelines that dictate morals and proper conduct. When you hold yourself to a high standard, you are being responsible for the gift of life that you have been given. When you are responsible for your actions, you are showing that you value life. So those two references were the acceptance book or responsibility book, page 14 and page 42. And that was about accountability, being accountable for our actions. And notice it said no excuses. Have you ever asked someone or someone to ask you, why did you do this? And you said, well, so-and-so did that. I want you to think about a video that you have seen. Maybe it was a DIY project. You can see that DIY project, but how does that DIY project get done? Because you choose to get the supplies in order to do it. Just like when we see people making risk-taking behaviors online, when we see people hurting themselves, we see people making right choices. We choose to do whatever we see. Anything we see, we choose to do it. We should be accountable for our actions. No one makes us do anything. No one makes us hurt ourselves. No one makes us be responsible. We choose to be responsible. So every time you make a choice, think to yourself, am I comfortable with answering to others about the choices that I have made? Because you can go online, and the social media is a very important part of life right now. You can go online, and we can look for ways to better ourselves, or we can look for ways to escape our situations. What are you making an option in your life? What are you allowing to be an option to help you solve your problems? Last week I shared about the girl who no longer made devaluing her life an option. And because of that, she continues on today to try her best. So what are we going to allow as parents to be an option for us? The simple things that we say, our children are going to start making those an option for themselves. So if you do not want your children to make those choices, then let's not make them ourselves. Let's be better, not just for ourselves, but for our children as well. So it says this will develop a greater sense of self-worth and confidence in their ability to make right choices. When you believe that they will make right choices, they're probably going to make those right choices. You know, you can think in your mind, okay, I know I asked them to do the tour last time and they created an argument. Okay, what if this time's different? There's something that I've learned ever since I was dealing with children, and they said that if a child is crying and you're upset, that child is going to feed off of your emotions. So if you would like the people that you're dealing with to calm down, yes, they control themselves, but you can play a part too and calm yourself down. Do what you can do in that situation. They will learn the reputation of being dependable. They will earn the reputation of being dependable and trustworthy. Trustworthy people who take responsibility for their actions. And in the character book on page 90, we went into what reputation is. A reputation is what you're known by, and your reputation is built by each choice that you make. Going on, it says, responsibility, what is it? Just like any other positive character trait, responsibility must be developed over time. Being responsible means you are someone others can count on to fulfill your duties and obligations. But most of all, you can count on yourself to make choices that are positive and supportive of your moral character development. Now, doesn't that sound like something you want to instill in your children? Notice it says you can count on yourself to make right choices, which means that you believe that I can make this right choice. And when you believe that you can make a right choice, you're more likely to believe that others are going to make those right choices as well. But as parents, it starts with us being responsible. I've heard some people say that if you make schedules, it will help you to stick to those schedules. And we'll go on to talk about how children feed off of routine. But as parents ourselves, we should have a routine as well. It goes back to that purpose we talked about last week. Having a list of things to do, maybe if it's just for that day, and that might help to relieve the stress that goes on. Because I know I have all this stuff to get done, but today this is what needs to get done. So find ways that you're able to not be so overwhelmed. All right, so it says responsibility is developed through everyday tasks, interactions, and experiences. So it's through our actions, something that has to occur every single day, and then it'll become a habit. Some tasks can seem tedious and boring. Just try to get your child to consistently keep his room clean or take out the garbage without constant reminders. That is a chore at times. Having a child do their chores is sometimes more of a chore for the parents at times, where you can think, I can just take the trash out myself in 5 minutes and I don't have to worry about it. But then you're teaching your child that, hey, if you don't want to do it, you don't got to do it. But what are they going to do when they get into, a career and this is their obligations? Well, I don't want to do it. You're fired. That is how it ripples out. So these things that seem so tiny are going to grow up. They're going to build your child to be a person that has a moral character, who can be depended on. Teaching responsibility in this day and age is very challenging because society promotes entertainment rather than family values, positive work ethic, honesty, and service to others. For service to others, let's go ahead and turn to page 27. Page 27. And it talks about teach your children the importance of helping and serving others. So I'm going to read these few points. It says, be patient and loving when teaching your children. It says, talk to your child about the joy you get from taking care of others and helping others. Give young children an appropriate task for picking up belongings and putting them away to holding the hose to water the garden. Even young children can assist and help around the house. Even though it might take longer time to do a laundry or to do a task, those times that you take the time to teach your child, this is where this goes. This is where you put this. That's not where you put your shoes. You put them in your room. You have mud. It might be like mud again, but take the time to wash it. I mean, how many times have we've had parents have to teach a child to clean a bathroom? You're like, come on, it's just a bathroom. No one likes it to be dirty. But how did you learn how to clean a bathroom? Maybe it wasn't your parent, maybe it was a guardian or where you went to school. But don't depend on other people to teach those things to your children. Start in your home. Start in your home. It is your responsibility to teach your child to do these things. Yes, when they go to other places, they're going to learn these things as well. But you as a parent can have that satisfaction that, yes, I helped in teaching you how to clean this. I helped in teaching you how to do this. So we're going to read these points on page 27. It says, be patient, loving, and caring when teaching. This holds true whether you're teaching your baby or a teenager. Be prepared to repeat, because children learn through repetition. Young children and many older ones are often visual and tactical learners. So, when teaching concepts, use creative ways to stimulate their senses. Pictures, songs, and rhymes are all great teaching tools. Be willing to explain choices and situations in your daily life for a moral standpoint. For example, explain to your 2-year-old not to throw the trash on the ground because we must keep the earth clean. And the last one, be willing to listen. A great teacher is also a great listener. No child should have to say, did you see all those bad things that I do and you don't ever see the great things? As adults, do we like that? Like, you can clean your whole house, and you didn't clean my cup. What about the whole house? I just cleaned the whole house. So if we don't like it done to us, don't do it to our children as well. And when we show our thanks, our children are more likely to show their thankfulness as well. We give them something, say thank you. They're more likely to pick up on thank you. I mean, when you drop something, a child picks up on uh-oh so quickly. So if you continue and say thank you every time something is given to you, they will pick up on that. If you see someone in need, oh, why don't we go help that person? Speak out loud so your children can know why you're making these choices. When they understand, they're more likely to value those same choices as well. So that was page 27. Now, if you look over to page 26, there's a point that says, teach your child to love learning. Even before your child is born, talk to them about the natural world, the blue of the sky and water, the colors of trees and flowers. Sing to your children in a soft tone of voice. This can continue after your child is born and throughout their youth. Remember, babies love the sounds of their mother's voices. Also read to your baby and toddler. This too can continue throughout their youth. Then encourage them to read to you. Keep in mind that conversations about our natural world can be extended to include older children as well. Take nature walks with them and make it a point to discover something new every day, week, or month. So just like we like to travel and be adventurous, children's world is our normality. I mean, that's something we see every day. But to a child, that's a building, that's a train. These are things they want to know about. So whenever we, I have a sibling, and he asks a ton of questions. Sometimes I think, how can a child ask so many questions? But because he asks those questions, I'm intrigued. I study. I figure out, okay, why is that building that tall? Not important to me, but it's important to him. So I make it important to me. Why is this action done? It's important to him, so I make it important to me. And when I do that, he's probably more likely to listen to me because I made what was important to him important to me. And as parents, we will develop new values. Through those things, we will learn about what our children are interested in. We will keep those communication ways open. So teaching our children to love learning comes with us being patient and willing to learn from our children, because we can learn so much. Going back to page 71, so service to others, we reference page 27, and then page 26, love learning. And in the procedure 3, it talked about for parents to write what they're responsible for. So this is a part right here where you would have this discussion with the parents. What are something you're responsible for? All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn to page LP9A, and we're going to read procedure 4. Procedure 4, that's LP9A. So it says, allot time for students to independently read the section Teaching Responsibility on pages 71 to 72 and answer the question to each scenario on page 72 and 73. Discuss scenarios and answers as a class. Stress the importance of maintaining self-control to make responsible choices. So let's go ahead and turn to page 71. Page 71, and we'll talk about teaching responsibility. And notice the line before it said that teaching responsibility in this day and age is very challenging because society promotes entertainment rather than family values, positive work ethic, honesty, and service to others. And I said before how they all tie in together. So a simple way of how honesty and responsibility tie in together is whenever you ask your child, did you do your chores? How they answer you shows you if they value their chores and if they're going to be honest. Because, I for myself, when I was a child, I would say yes, and it's, let's go check on your bed. I don't think I'm quite done with my room yet because I put everything under my bed instead of, taking it and putting it where it goes. Now as I'm older, I'm just like, come on, what a bad choice I was, because you know how much longer it took for me to clean my room instead of putting things up where they went? All right, teaching responsibility. Build the positive character trait of responsibility by establishing and maintaining routine in your child's life. A routine, we want to define it as a sequence of action regularly followed. So a routine is a sequence of action that is regularly followed. It has been proven that we function best when we establish routines in our lives. This holds for children as well. Children like to know what is expected of them. They like to know what is next. What am I supposed to do? And so making routines will let children know what they are responsible for, what is required of them. They do not operate at their best if they're not sure what will occur next. For example, one day they might get up at 7 a.m., having 15 minutes to get ready for school, and the next day at 7:45 a.m., with only 5 minutes to get to school on time. Maintain a steady schedule for activities and plan to stick to them as much as possible. Of course, always be prepared to handle curveballs that come your way and derail you from routine, but then get back on the schedule. And that's something so important to remember. You can have a schedule, but there might be things that derail your schedule. And this is where we want to keep ourselves calm, where we want to practice positive self-talk, where we want to talk ourselves through these situations. I mean, how many of us have ever been on our way somewhere and then a red light? And you're like, oh, this red light. You know, you might have some choice words in your head. You say them out loud. Later, your child does something, and what are you going to hear out of their mouth? Exactly what you said. Those situations that are called setbacks, these curveballs, really test, hey, am I practicing self-control? Am I practicing, being respectful? Every time something occurs, you are teaching not only yourself, but you are teaching your children. I want us to all remember that every time you say something, you are making a habit for yourself. You say it once, you say it over, you say it again, it is a habit now. And you have to work twice as hard to get that phrase, that saying, that thought out of your head. But just because those thoughts and those things come back in your head, does that mean that you can't get those thoughts out of your head? No, it might take twice as long, it might be twice as hard, but it's not impossible. All it depends on is, are you willing to become a better person? Are you willing to change some things that aren't that easy to change? All right, so for curveballs in the character book on page 85, we talked about what curveballs are. Curveballs are unexpected situations that come our way. And in the Building More Excellence book on page 108, it talks about self-control in our thoughts and how we can practice self-talk. But it all starts with our thoughts. Life is full of surprises. How well do you handle situations that throw you off schedule? Do you become frustrated, impatient, demanding, angry, or start yelling? Or do you remember the positive character traits of patience and self-control? So really think to yourself, what do you do? That paragraph is really an evaluation. What do I do? Is it wrong to become upset? Is it wrong to feel wronged? Is it wrong to have all these emotions? No, it's not. If you do that, you're a human being, But what is wrong is if you react and hurt someone or yourself or a belonging or the environment. That is what's wrong. So having these emotions of being upset is not wrong at all. But how you react, how you respond, how you take that anger and turn it to rage, that is what is wrong. As parents, when we give our children chores or instructions or reminders, they might get upset at us. Is it wrong that they get upset at us? Should we feel bad because they get upset at us? No, because they have right to their emotions. How they respond, how we respond, is really showing us whether we are practicing self-control or not. I corrected a child the other day, and they got upset, and I was like, I don't want this child to be upset with me. But then I thought, I got upset when I was younger, and I had to take some time and think about it, and I had to get over it. So it's okay if our children or whoever we're dealing with doesn't like the instructions that they're given. It's okay. But it's also important that we remind them that even though you don't like this choice or this instruction that you're given, doesn't mean that you can just not do it. You are supposed to do it. This is what you're supposed to do. So if you're going to show respect, you're going to put your feelings aside and you're going to do what is required of you. Chores, taking care of a dog, these are things that are all a part of being a family. Children always think about, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a president of the United States. The president of the United States also had to clean his room first. The president of the United States also had to be respectful. The president of the United States also had to put his toothbrush back in the toothbrush holder. So if we want to be these big, responsible people, then let's start with ourselves right now, taking care of our small things. They seem so small to us as authorities, but to the child, that might be the biggest thing. Making your bed, who wouldn't just want to leave it a mess and go eat breakfast and brush our teeth? But am I being responsible? So it's all of these little things that make us up to the people that we are today. And as we go through these things, really think about what you felt as a child. We didn't always agree with our parents, and it took time for us to become okay with certain things. So let's allow our children that time as well, but also remind them of the dangers that society hands us, and that each thing that is set before them, it's a choice. No one is forced to do anything. All we are allowed is choices to make. You have the power to control yourself, and that is the greatest power that anyone can have. And with this, I'm going to turn it over to the next teacher.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please, let's give our teacher a great hand. She was just wonderful, wasn't she? Okay, so I am going to continue where she left off, but I wanted to open up with a quote, because we're learning as teachers, as parents, how to teach someone else these traits, right? So earlier in the week, there was a documentary that I took a moment to watch because the headline caught my attention. It said, a family specter of violence across generations leaves 2 of them dead. So I didn't read the whole article, but I read the introduction, and the oldest daughter, who's now an adult, she said, growing up in a domestic violence situation, you think it's normal. And that is key, because what our children see around in our home, that's what they learn to accept as normal. And it's only when they grow older or outside of the home that they start either suffering consequences for wrong choices because they imitated possibly our behavior. But it's these things that as parents, well, as teachers, we have to remind our parents. You say, everything, just like the previous teacher said, everything we say and everything we do, we are teaching. And our children are watching. And one of the things that this lady said, she said, with their words, they tried to make things better. But see, they had already seen the hurt and the pain of striking, not just with words, but with physical action. So, we want to be reminded of this, and we want to make sure that no matter how upset we are, that we keep our self-control and that we teach with our actions to our children how to respond appropriately, even when we're upset. Because like the teacher said, we're not telling people, oh, you're never going to get upset anymore. Take the peaceful solution and you will never again be upset. No, we tell them, yes, you're going to be upset because that's a natural emotion. But what you're going to learn is how to respond respectfully and not allow your anger to speak for you. Okay, so that's one of the things that we always want to be mindful of. And when we're upset for whatever we're dealing with, and sometimes we think our children are not paying attention. They are. Okay, so we're going to continue. So build a positive, I'm just going to rephrase the first, teaching responsibility on page 71. So build a positive character trait of responsibility by establishing and maintaining routine in your child's life. And like she said, like the teacher said, we have to model that by us having a routine. Okay, and I'm just going to, sometimes I want to bring out things in class. As a classroom teacher, you see a lot of things that work, but then you also see some things that don't work, and you learn from that. Okay, but one of the things that as a classroom teacher I was able to see was that when you explain what your expectations are, okay, for whatever task, whatever assignment, what you expect, more than likely, the children, the students, will want to rise up to that. Okay, believe it or not. I've had the great opportunity to teach thousands of students, and I can, with all honesty, tell you that I've never had a student that did not rise up, even exceeded my expectations. It is possible. Okay, we just need to have that clear communication with them constantly. Okay, so on page 72, we're going to continue. We're going to be reading, it says, children like to know what is expected of them. See, when you explain to them, this is what I want, this is what I expect, they really do want to please you. They really want to rise up to that level that they're going to accomplish what you're telling them that you want them to accomplish. It says they do not operate at their best if they're not sure of what will occur next. For example, one day they might get up at 7, having 50 minutes to get ready for school, and the next day at 7:45 with only 5 minutes to get ready for school. So maintain a steady schedule of activities and plan to stick to it as much as possible. And then, of course, we have to realize that we have to be prepared to handle those curveballs that the great teacher just talked to us about. That are going to come our way, okay? And it says these curveballs are going to derail you from your routine. So you can get right back to it, okay? Sometimes that's another thing that you can teach children. You know, some children, I've had the opportunity to teach children with autism, and they like structure, and they love routines, okay? But so do the other children. And when you, sometimes when you're teaching an autistic children, you learn to do these things, but you realize very quickly that the rest of your students, the rest of your children, appreciate that as well. Really, truly, no one likes surprises, like it says right now. Like, I'm going to do this, but then I don't know how my supervisor is going to react, or I don't know how my mom's going to react. We don't like that. We like to know what's expected from us, okay? So, and as consequences as well, when they're explained, you know, if you don't do this, these are the possible outcomes of not taking responsibility or not doing the chores that I assigned you to do. Okay, so scenario number 1. Now, when we're going through these scenarios, as teachers, when we're teaching this program, we encourage our students to take notes, right? We also ask them to be very honest with themselves. So we have to be very careful when we're teaching that if it's in a group, some people are going to write down things that are, you know, not great, actually pretty horrible, that they might have experienced. And when they're writing and they're telling themselves some things that they want to, you know, overcome, get rid of, change in themselves, they're being honest with themselves, but it's possibly not something they might want to share with the whole group. Okay, so we've got to be really careful when we're guiding these discussions when we have a group, when we're teaching in a group. Okay, so it says, life is full of surprises. How well you handle these situations that throw you off schedule? Well, do you become frustrated, impatient, demanding, angry, or start yelling? Or do you remember the positive character traits of patience and self-control? I encourage you as teachers to always have with you, okay, these character traits. They're the positive and the negative ones. I'm going to put them up here. These are, we're often going to be referring that. No matter what peaceful solution class you're teaching, you're always going to go back to these traits. And when you mention one word, you can't assume that everyone knows exactly what you mean or what that word means. Okay, self-control. People have different ideas of what the word self-control means, or of what the word responsibility might mean. I remember one time there was a young man with his wife, and he was explaining that, you know, he thought he practiced, you know, self-control pretty well. And then, you know, his wife kind of just looks at him like, really? Because obviously she didn't think so. But then he said, well, and then he just continues. He's like, well, I mean, I punched the wall, but I didn't hit her. And I said, well, and you know what? That's really great that you didn't hit her, because of course you don't want to do that. But I said, when we feel that we have to punch something or hit something, we're really not practicing self-control. But see, in his mind, he was doing okay because, well, he wasn't hitting a person, which, yes, it's great. But remember the definition, no impulsive actions. That's what it means to have self-control. So if you react, you're angry and you hit or you throw something, or you're acting impulsively. So we're really not practicing self-control. So these are the things that you want to be mindful of when you're teaching a class or when you're talking to your children. When we're talking to them, we need to be able to explain these things so that they have a clear understanding of what we're expecting of them. So scenario number 1, it's 7:35. You and your children should be in the car backing out of the driveway. Your oldest completed his book report that is due today, but can't find it. Okay, was that being organized? No, right? But see, these are the little things that sometimes we think don't matter, but then in the middle of a situation, it would have really helped if our child would have been organized and put it where it belonged, in the backpack, right? Your middle child is putting the dog on his leash because he wants to take it for a quick walk. And your youngest needs help putting on her shoes. So what could you do? Now, we're reading the scenarios, and of course, you and I are going to be like, oh, well, yes, we obviously know the right answer. And we tell parents that, you're going to, the right answer is really quickly going to jump out at you. But when you're in the middle of it, do you clearly see what the right choice should be? Well, not immediately. When you're filled with all that desperation and frustration and you're going to be late to work, it's not clear. The right choice might not be as clear as how we're doing it right now, right? So it says, letter A, start yelling and screaming for everyone to get in the car quick. Usually that would probably be my first response, right? Because, again, I'm late, you're going to be late, I'm going to be late. Letter B, remain calm. How simple that sounds, right? Remain calm and patiently continue to help your child put on her shoes while you direct the middle child to look around for the various places where he could have left his report, and then remind the middle child that this is not the time for a walk with a dog, and put him back in the backyard. Or letter C, scream. You always make me late. Okay, I want you to highlight that word, always, because this is something that as teachers, we want to remind our students. When we start saying, you always do this, you never listen to me, that's our cue. We're not practicing the peaceful solution. Because we all know that it's not always like that, and it's not never like that. We're just in the middle of feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, whatever the emotion might be. But the always and the never, those are our cues. Okay, let me be quiet, let me calm down, and let me rephrase this, okay? So it says, grab your youngest roughly and tell her that she will never learn how to put on her shoes on, and that she is always going to make you late. Then tell your oldest that he probably will get a low grade on his report card anyway. And so just don't bother finding it, just leave it. And then threaten to get rid of the dog. And that'll solve all problems. Well, see, it sounds funny. It really does. I mean, you're reading it and it sounds funny because, we're in a class. But really, that can very easily take place. And it does take place, right? Now, I'm going to take this moment right now to share a little scenario with you. It's a live scenario. It occurred based on a true story, okay? And I'm going to share it because we're learning how to take on responsibility. And that includes having responsibility with our words, okay? But the speaker is not the only one that has to be responsible with what we speak. Those of us that are listening, we need to take responsibility for what we're hearing and that we understand what's being said. A lady is sitting with a friend, okay? The friend comes over because she says, I need to talk to you. and she tells him, your husband is having an affair. And so, the lady kind of, what? She gets up, she starts getting really anxious and upset, and she grabs a drink, an alcoholic drink. And she kind of like chugs it. And the lady continues to talk to her and tells her, well, and I found out and I was here and, telling her all the story. And she says, and I really think that the lady is pregnant. So the lady goes and gets another drink, okay? And then the emotion comes out. She starts crying and she tells her friend, I can't believe this is occurring to me, And she gets very upset and she starts crying. And she says, I really could die right now. I don't care about anything, And of course she's sharing with her friend her grief, her sorrow, but she doesn't realize one thing. Her 10-year-old child is listening to her. Okay, so days pass by and she still doesn't know that her 10-year-old heard her. Okay, so about 2 weeks go by and then the 10-year-old calls her grandma. And she says, well, Grandma, I want to die, Grandma. And so the grandma was like, she's 10. What are you talking about? And she says, my mom, she doesn't love us. She's like, what do you mean she doesn't? Of course she loves you. She says, no, she doesn't. I heard her. She says she didn't care about us. Because in her mind, what her mom had just said, that's what it translated to. That she was not cared for. So see how, and it like I'm saying, it's very difficult at times because we want to be able to share our emotions with somebody at times. Okay, but as teachers, we always want to remind parents of these things, and we have to be mindful ourselves that while we might be expressing something that could be very natural to us, excuse me, it could be interpreted another way by whoever's listening. Okay, so, I just wanted to bring that up right now because when I was reading this, as a teacher, when you're preparing for a class, these are the things that you want to share with people so that they can connect with you and they can realize all the possible things that could go wrong, because they can go wrong. What if this 10-year-old didn't talk to grandma and explain to her why she thought this way and why she felt this way? We don't know the repercussions that would have had on this 10-year-old. Okay, so these are the things that as teachers, when we're teaching this program, whether it's young people, older people, because all of us can go through these things. Okay, so this is just one of the things that I wanted to share so that we can be very mindful of all the possible outcomes that our words can have, okay, by those that are listening to us. Okay, scenario number 2. Okay, well, let's go back. So what is the ideal for number 1? What would be the ideal response? B, right? Okay. It says you had a long day at work. The workload is piled up and it's overdue. Like I just had a coworker call me to tell me that, they were very busy today. So I know why she's telling me that, but okay. So it says, when the family comes home, everyone needs your attention. Supper is late, everyone has homework, and they all need help with the homework. So what could you do? Scenario A, tell everyone, fend for themselves. I quit. I resign. B, take a few minutes to plan out with the family how everyone can pitch in to get the chores done before supper. Fix something that is simple. We're not having steak and baked potato and all that nice food, and quick for supper. And then afterwards, we can work on homework. Or C, tune everyone out, sit on the couch, raise the volume on the TV really high, and just sit there. Again, what would be the ideal thing, how we all should respond? B, right? Okay, it says, today is the day that your family planned a special activity. You wake up your youngest to find out that he has a fever. Everyone is disappointed. And on top of that, you find out that the bathroom toilet is backing up and spilling all over the floor. So what can we do? Okay, A, we call our spouse and we start complaining, because that usually solves things. And we start saying about how rotten our day is going, and could he please come home and fix the toilet and then watch the sick child and the rest of the family can go to the activity. Or B, we can remain calm, turn off the water to the toilet, mop up the mess, and then sit down to the family and explain to them that because their youngest sibling is sick, we're going to have to cancel our plans or change them. Okay. Or C, allow the sick child to do the special activity with the rest of the family and let the toilet continue to back up. No, please. No. Okay, so B would be the correct answer, right? Okay, so notice there's always going to be variation, and I was sharing with some other peaceful solution instructors that there was a time that we were going over the self-control unit, and there was on page, I forget if it was page 60. It talks about choices, how some choices are really inconsequential, right? And it shows in the little cartoon. Okay, it shows in the little cartoon, it shows that the man is trying to pick a sweater. And so it says, well, it won't make a difference if you pick a green sweater or a red sweater. And I was teaching this in a group, and we had about 15 students in the class. Well, one of the youngest men raises his hand, and he goes, well, I mean, it's funny that it says right there that it doesn't, whether I wear the green or the red wouldn't make a difference. He goes, but I'm originally from Chicago. He goes, and from the part of town that I'm from, it really would make a difference if I wear a green or a red red sweater. I could get killed for wearing a red sweater. So, it caught my attention that these are the things that when we're teaching the peaceful solution, you have to make it a point so that everybody relates these scenarios to their life and makes a connection. Like, it might not be exactly like this scenario, but it could be something similar. And you want to tell them, either way, chaos is chaos. And when we can remain calm through chaos, that's really to the point where we all want to get to, right? And so you want to make that connection. You want for your students to make that connection as you're presenting, no matter what situation you're presenting in the peaceful solution. So it says, so if you chose B, answers for each scenario, you would have practiced self-control and you would have made responsible choices. So remember to make responsible choices when life throws you a curveball. And we need to remain calm to make the best choice for all involved. And when we make a mistake as parents or teachers, which, it's bound to occur, connecting back to our children or our students and saying, you know what, I made a mistake. I made a really bad choice when I reacted this way or that way, is going to work really wonderful things with your child, because they're going to realize, okay, mom messed up. Okay. And that's okay. But the first thing we have to do is recognize we've messed up in order to fix it or to change it. If we can't recognize or admit that we were wrong, then that's how we start teaching not being accountable for our own actions. Okay. That's part of I just want to kind of mention that in this moment. Now, it says here to explain about, it says, so what does work ethic mean? And I wanted to share something that I think it's really very important. In a classroom teachers, they are being taught a strategy right now. Like one of the strategies is when their students are taking a reading comprehension test, they're teaching the teachers to teach the students that before they read the passage, to go to the questions and read all the questions first, and to tell the students, you're not going to know the answers because you haven't read the passage, but I want you to read the questions that you're going to be asked, because this gives focus or purpose to your reading. Okay, well, I want to share the same thing, because as teachers, when we are preparing for a class, you want to read your lesson plan thoroughly. Before you even begin to read the lesson, if you read the whole lesson plan, because that's going to tell you exactly what are the key points that you're going to be looking out for, and what scenarios can you think of in addition to what you might be covering that will help you make that lesson connect thoroughly with your students. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you, because I really believe that's one of the most powerful techniques as teachers that we can have when we're preparing a lesson for our students. Because you have to remember, sometimes you're only going to be allowed that one lesson Hopefully you get to teach the whole book, but that's not always the case. So you've got to be able to pick out the highlights and the important parts if one lesson is all you've got. Okay, so it says, what does work ethic mean? So before we read that, I want you to turn to LP 9A. It starts at LP 9A and finishes at LP 9B, and it says procedure 5. So it says, have volunteers read the section that says, what does work ethic mean? And it's going to be on page 73 and page 74, and it says, discuss how drastically society has changed in the past 50 years concerning work ethics. And children used to be expected to help with household chores. And I remember that my mom, that was one of the big things that she shared. She said, I was 9 years old when I learned how to make flour tortillas, from scratch. And so we learned that because my mom would constantly share that. Now you might be reported if you have your child making flour tortillas. And, it's a little joke. But I'm saying it has varied tremendously, right? It really has. And some things that parents back then considered just chores, you're being part of the family and you're helping. I mean, the government tells you, well, no, you're making them work. So you've got to, there's a lot of things that we need to, that has changed in our society, and that's plain to see. Okay, so you do want to share that with your children. You want them to know, things that I can't, that government says, oh, well, you really shouldn't do that, were things that were naturally and normally taught in every household. So as a class, brainstorm different life skills that parents could teach their children. And again, as the instructor, you want to be very mindful of keeping always the conversation guided towards what the peaceful solution teaches, okay? Because when you're teaching in a group, and you really never know what people are going to say, what people have been through, what, people's experiences are all vast and different. So you always want to be mindful that if someone shares something and it goes totally against what the peaceful solution teaches, that you learn to kind of guide it back. Okay, no, you're not going to tell them, no, you're wrong. That's not how we do it. But you guide it back to the concepts that the peaceful solution teaches. Okay, remember that as teachers. And parents learn how to teach this program really well, let me tell you. Okay, because one of the things that we do tell them as instructors, we say, when you're teaching this to your children, you're not just a parent, you are their teacher. And they learn to see you that way when you make it a point to make it clear, yes, I am your parent, but I'm also your teacher. And so just like a classroom teacher would tell you in class, we don't do this, we don't do that. That's the same thing at home. It's no different. And when our children are already school age and we're teaching them, they can relate. They know there's consequences in a classroom when the rules are not followed. So by the same token, there's going to be responsibilities that need to be taken upon, and when they're not followed, you can also explain what occurs when we don't do the things that we're responsible for. What can occur? Because one of the things I would share with my children is like, well, mom has to work. So mom doesn't go to work, we don't get paid. Mommy doesn't get paid, well, then we don't have food, we don't have a house, we don't have, so it's that part. Like, you have responsibility. As parents, we have responsibilities, and we share that. We tell them things can go wrong when people don't do what they're responsible for doing. Okay, so go back to page 73. And one of the things that we like to share here is the definition of work. Okay, it says a task that is to be undertaken or something that a person or thing has to do. Okay, so we start. Don't let the word work scare you. Okay, I want to share a little something here. It says when we all explain that everyone has responsibilities, this is one of the parts where you want to tell them, and how we carry out those responsibilities is part of that work ethic. Okay, just like the great teacher before me was explaining, well, we can clean the living room and just go put everything under our bed. So yes, I cleaned up the living room just like I was asked, but I didn't do it effectively, or I didn't do it with ethics. Okay, so this is some of the things that we want to explain as teachers to our parents, so that they can know how to explain to their children when we're teaching. It is an essential part of everyday life, and you might not have thought about it, but children must be taught how to work. Okay, so let's be mindful of that. Okay, because sometimes we might be doing dishes, and we might be complaining of our, long day, and so we're showing our children, like we're complaining and grumbling and washing dishes. Well, are they seeing us enjoy all these responsibilities that we have? Not really, right? I mean, we're showing them with our example that, well, yeah, I'm going to wash dishes because I've got to wash dishes, but I'm so tired and I'm frustrated. And so they're watching this. Okay. So I want you to, like I said, I want us to be mindful of all of this when we're caring about what could just be in our minds, just another simple chore that I do every day when I get off work. Okay. So it says, as always, in the role of a parent, your example will be the most powerful teaching tool in this area. So, of course, your child usually doesn't witness what you do when you are away from home doing your other job. So think about what you do when you come home from work. Do you come home and sit yourself in front of the TV, eat supper there, and eventually fall asleep? Or do you continue to model a work ethic, teaching your child different life skills? Okay, so again, I know we say this very often, that as we are their example and that we model what we are going to expect from our children. But a lot of times we don't internalize it to the point where we realize that everything, even the gestures we might do when we're doing something, gives people around us, they can tell, are we enjoying ourselves? Are we doing what we are doing joyfully? Or are we grumbling about it? Are we having an issue doing what we have to do? Okay, so because all of this is going to be picked up by our children. Okay, we don't have to say a word and our children will pick up whether we're enjoying ourselves and doing it, serving with pleasure, like our great teacher just said, or yeah, I'm going to serve you, but I've got an issue serving you. So this is where we're going to stop. Okay, and thank you for joining us, everyone here and abroad. It was my joy and pleasure. So we'll see you next week for another class. Everyone have